Shri Vishwanath Karatji, Shri Rahul Karatji, former Union Minister, Shri K. Natwar Singh Ji, and the former Speaker, who is the Vice Chancellor of University, one of the universities, Mahesh Tapasi, and other dignitaries on the dais, students, ladies and gentlemen. It is my proud privilege to be here to attend this session of Bharatiya Janata Chhatra Sansad, which aims at creating an environment inspiring educated youth of our country to participate in democratic polity, to embrace public life, with a view to strengthening the democratic fabric of our nation. I congratulate all who have associated with this effort for their achievements in this important field of nation's development. Before delving into the subject Temples of Democracy under Siege, a global perspective, allow me a moment here to recall my connection with this topic. As the Speaker of West Bengal Legislative Assembly, I have been entrusted with the House to preserve its dignity, honor, and sagacity. Naturally, when I am to speak on the topic, Temples of Democracy under Siege, a force rises from within my consciousness to free the Temple of Democracy from siege. But at the same time, there is no denying of the fact that current and cross currents are visible and are trying to undermine the temples of democracy by bringing them under siege. The etymological definition of democracy is that it is the rule of the people. Abraham Lincoln, in his address at the dedication of the National Cemetery at Gettysburg on 19 November 1863, stated, "Government of the people, by the people, for the people, and shall not perish from the earth." He further observed, "As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master." This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to the extent of the difference, is no democracy. Professor Hon'ble, comparing dictatorship with democracy, observed, while democracy stands for the force of argument, dictatorship stands for argument of force. The most fundamental and far-reaching decision of the India's constitution makers was to establish democracy in India on the foundations of universal adult suffrage and on the principles of one man, one vote. The decision was simple and uncontroversial, yet it was by all means momentous and revolutionary, making every adult Indian citizen, irrespective of caste, sex, and economic and educational qualifications, a shareholder in India's democratic setup. It was apprehended that with appalling poverty, very high rate of growth of population, large scale of illiteracy, and cosmopolitan composition of population, India may sooner or later give way to autocratic system of government. The working of India's parliamentary democracy has not only belied all such fears and apprehensions, but it has stood the test of time. 16 general elections to parliament have been successfully conducted, and we have seen peaceful transfer of power for more than once from one party to another party or alliance. The Indian electorate has exercised their franchise with a fair degree of freedom and could overthrow an elected government. It assumes great importance in the sense when we see how much blood is shed and how many lives are sacrificed at the time of transfer of power in our neighboring countries. The fact has been noted and appreciated by the international community, the same community which was cynical 6 decades back when India began its journey on the path of parliamentary democracy. At the same time, our experience shows that during 6 decades of working on our parliamentary democracy, some aberrations have taken place, which is not only good for the health of the system. The challenges to overcome the aberrations come both from prevailing domestic and international conditions, as well as lack of adequate prerequisites for a smooth running of democracy. One of the adequate prerequisites for smooth running of democracy is obvious literacy. The level and quality of education of citizens is key to both the successful functioning of democracy and socio-economic development. The force now has to move from elevation of illiteracy to elimination of illiteracy. Literacy makes the citizen conscious of the principles of liberty and equality of all and ensures that the representatives elected by them to the temple of democracy represent all the interests of the society. Literacy is the prerequisite of quality education, which in turn includes the core values of love for motherland, compassion for all, tolerance for pluralism, respect for women, performance of duty, honesty in life, self-restraint in conduct, responsibility in action, and discipline in the young minds. Unless all these are achieved, there are bound to be apprehensions that temple of democracy may be under siege. On the social and political fronts too, casteism, regionalism, communalism, religious fanaticism, and fundamentalism, and forces with separate tendencies have been raising their ugly hands. These threatening the temple of democracy adversely. Casteism has played and is playing a negative role in the democratic political process as practiced today. In the era of globalization, caste consciousness has not been eroded in the society. On the other hand, the state consciousness has grown by gigantic proportions. As a result of mixing of caste and politics, politicization of caste and casteization of politics have assumed alarming proportions, posing a grave challenge to the temple of democracy. Communalism, racism, and religious fundamentalism is a tragic setback in the pattern of coexisting of multi-religious society. It destroys the political stability and glorious heritage of humanism and composite culture. Communalism as an ideology is resorted by some political parties to garner votes and consolidate its vote bank. In the process, one religious community is used against other communities for spreading hatred and has proved to be a great threat to the social and political life. The fundamentalists are opposed to any kind of progressive reforms, be it in the sphere of education or social or economic milieu or otherwise. In the process, they forget that religious fundamentalism and communism is a vicious circle. The cry of one religion community in danger for consolidating one's vote bank is bound to give rise, pampering the sentiments of other religious community by another political party to consolidate its vote bank. The religious fundamentalists and the vice of communalism and racism could not have dared to touch the temple of democracy if the political parties had not used them directly or indirectly to influence the voters. Probably my time is going to be out. I don't know why this bell is ringing. Anyway, without taking much time, there are various other adversities which the present democracy field is facing. As the Speaker of West Bengal Legislative Assembly, I have less to speak, but I have more to hear. But here I am delivering before this